Hello out there and welcome to Public Conscience. This is the anti-corruption program produced by the Progressive Impact Organization for Community Development, PRIMOG. PRIMOG is a civil society group with the mandate to promote good governance, participation, and accountability in Nigeria. I am Adaobi Obiabumo with Chidozie Ogunaya.
Welcome to the program.
On Public Conscience on radio, we seek to evolve a corruption-free society through the amplification of corruption stories reported by our partner media organizations and drawing citizens and government's attention for democratic actions against it. This program is supported by the MacArthur Foundation.
Today, we will be looking at a very disturbing pattern which is hastily becoming a culture in the public sector. You will hear how the actions and inactions of the government is stagnating the fight against corruption and demoralizing stakeholders who painstakingly put their lives on the line trying to expose systemic corruption.
We will hear from some of our media partner organizations: Daily Trust Foundation, International Center for Investigative Reporting ICIR, The Cable, and Sahara Reporters over the neglect of investigative corruption reports by the government and anti-corruption agencies. So brace up because you are about to hear more. And please be ready to join us through phone and text messages. The WhatsApp number to send your message is 0902-265-6167. That is 0902-265-6167. And please remember that this number is for messages only.
So please begin to send your messages as soon as possible to 090-2265-6167. The numbers to call will be given to you shortly.
We are all aware that corruption is an evil wind that blows no society any good. But as a Nigerian, are you aware of the numerous investigative corruption reports that are churned out daily? How bothered are you that these reports are not acted on by the government and the anti-corruption agencies?
According to a Nobel laureate, Rigoberta Menchú, and I quote, without strong watchdog institutions, impunity becomes the very foundation upon which systems of corruption are built. And if impunity is not demolished, all efforts to bring an end to corruption are in vain. End of quote.
But today in Nigeria, we have institutions set up to fight corruption. We also have agencies established specifically to combat corruption. We have stakeholders and journalists who take maximum risks in exposing corruption in our system. But little or no action is taken against corruption by the government and these agencies. Some of the leading anti-corruption agencies are the Code of Conduct Bureau, CCB, the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, and the Economic and Financial Crime Commission, EFCC.
We also have the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation and the Public Accounts Committee in the National Assembly. Over time, most of these corruption stories have been swept under carpet or completely neglected without reasons, while the impunity rages on, to the extent that even series of indicting audit report by the Auditor General of the Federation could not get government's needed attention or that of anti-graft agencies.
It will be recalled that Nigeria lost over 300 billion naira to about 265 agencies of the federal government who committed one financial infraction or the other in 2017. The agencies were identified in the report, but until now, no known action was taken by the government or the different anti-corruption agencies in the country.
I make bold to say that we have a lineup of intimidating guests on the program today. They represent the finest in investigative reporting in the world. So let us begin in the studio. We have the director, Daily Trust Foundation, Dr. Theophilus Abba. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you very much.
And we also have Executive Director at International Center for Investigative Reporting, Dayo Ayeton. You're welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you for having me.
We also have joining us the CEO of The Cable, Simon Kolawole, and CEO of Sahara Reporters, Omoyele Showore, who will join us via the phone. And we still have Theophilus Abba, the Director, Daily Trust Foundation, in the studio. Let's begin with you, sir. Could you give us some of your practical experiences of neglected reports? What are we losing as a nation as a result of this report, the neglect of the report?
Okay, if you let me say good morning once again. When we talk about investigative journalism, we talk of journalism that is supported by Section 22 of the Constitution, which says that the media should hold government accountable to the people. Now, this section of the Constitution empowers journalists to probe activities of government agencies. Though journalists are not don't have that power that the DSS or the ICPC or the EFCC have. You don't have the kind of authority that these agencies of government have, but they have skills, they have the capacity to do investigation, and on our part we've been doing our best to ensure that we hold government accountable. Hold government accountable to the people. Now, I will cite some examples of stories that have been published, and we expected that government will take steps, or anti-corruption agencies will enter into those stories and do more, because even whatever we publish as journalists need to be verified by anti-corruption agencies before they could take steps. When Isaac Adewale was Minister of Health, he made a statement that the health system was dysfunctional, and about 20,000 primary health care centers that were not functioning. There are about 30,000 that have been built over the last few years, but about 20,000 were not working. Now, we did an investigation. We went to some states, specifically 3 states. We went to Kano, went to Benue and Kogi, and we investigated some primary healthcare centers which contracts have been awarded. One of them is Save Vanga in Gwelu East local government area of Benue State. The contract began in 2013, and as of 2019, it had not been completed. Meanwhile, the money had been paid. The contract sum had been paid. Then we also went to Ediwe in Apa local government area of Benue State. The contract was awarded, the contract sum paid to the contractors, but the project was not completed. And when we confronted the contractor, he said the money given to him was not enough for him to complete the work, in spite of the fact that the money, the contracts had been paid by the federal government. So even in Kano, you have a healthcare facility that has been built, not built to taste. But then the worst thing was that there were staff members who were paid salaries but were not going to work. So you see, this shows that the fund that entered into these primary healthcare facilities or clinics was wasted. How can government put in a minimum of 30 million naira into a project, and at the end of the day it is either not completed or it is abandoned, and the people who are supposed to benefit from this project don't access healthcare? And that is why if you go to some of these rural areas, somebody could just die because he could not afford, he could not see a doctor to treat him of malaria or one of the common ailments. Now, after publishing these stories, we expected that the the National Assembly rather, which attracted those projects to those areas, would say, okay, what happened? Why is it that this project that we put in as part of a constituency project were not executed, or even they are executed not according to specification? What happened? The National Assembly did not do anything. Then
so nothing has been done on that report? Nothing
has been done. Then I wanted to even talk about what I call an irony. The National Assembly members, they are giving funds, running costs on maybe a monthly basis, and they are supposed to retire this money. Daily Trust published a story in late last year that these funds were not being retired. Now, on a monthly basis from the report that is even generated from the Auditor General's own report, the Senate President will get 44 million, the Senate President will get 31 million, Senate Leader will get 22 million, then Minority Leader will get 16 million, other senators will get 13 million.
Okay, Dr. Abba, not sorry to jump in here, but looking at the current ways the anti-corruption agencies operate, how can we get the likes of EFCC, the ICPC, the CCB, and others to be independent and of political interference and act accordingly?
I think their acts state that they are independent.
Their actions.
Because the person who sits on the chair determines how the office is run. Now, if, for instance, the name of ICPC, Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences, shows that it is independent. Now, if the person who is the chairman, or the person who is the EFCC too has a chairman, if the person who is the chairman of EFCC, decides not to act independently, he is the one that we have to blame. Because I know that politicians could influence decisions at the ICPC or EFCC or CCB or whatsoever, but then it depends on the personality, it depends on how the person sitting there, does his job. So I'm feeling that even at the EFCC, ICPC, maybe perhaps the need to do better investigation. Because what we discover has been that, by the time some of these cases go to court, evidence they have will not be watertight to be able to prosecute. And that is why high-profile cases don't really get convictions the way we expect them. Because if the ICPC or EFCC presents a wishy-washy report, or has evidence that they cannot even stand by, they cannot stand the test of time in court, there is no way they can get prosecution.
Okay,
we'll get more on that.
We'll come back to you, but let's quickly take Omoyele Showore on. He has joined us via the phone. Thank you for joining us. But let's quickly get to the middle of the day. Sahara reporters churn out several investigative reports. What is your view on the neglect of some of these reports amid the fight against corruption?
It's because Sahara reporters mainly targeted politically exposed person, and you don't expect in their own self-interest that they will act on the reports that are directly indicting them with corruption. So you remember when this administration came on board, one of the first reports we did was on the acquisition of several homes by the Chief of Army Staff. So you're not expecting the Chief of Army Staff to in any way turn around and allow any agencies of government, considering how powerful he is, to change that trajectory. It's not possible. He's not going to allow, with his own influence, any kind of punishment we meted out to him. Following that, we did expose, as you probably remember, the illegal employment carried out by the Central Bank of Nigeria. And then the same Central Bank, at some point before I was arrested in 2019, we obtained audio of a conversation between the Central Bank governor and a lot of senior bank officials that amounted to 500 billion naira of how they were trying to cover up that massive corruption. Not even a single action was taken. Not a statement was issued by any anti-corruption agency or the government. So it's the nature of our reporting. We deal mostly with public sector corruption at the highest level. And so we don't expect any magic to happen from all of this. But there is also some good news. There's been a lot of reporting we did that some of them have been in court since 2017 of former governors, of people who participated in Jonathan regime. We broke a lot of stories around the $2 billion arms deal, you remember. And a lot of these characters are on trial as we speak. I think we don't expect that people who are indicted and who are in power at the same time will surrender themselves for the kind of heavy prosecution and indictment. That should follow such reporting.
So I'm going to take you back to the neglected reports, because there must be cause and effect. So what is responsible for government not responding to it despite the obvious indictment and given the fact that we are even fighting corruption this time?
Well, it tells you that nobody is fighting corruption. There's a difference between fighting corruption and using corruption to fight enemies of government, or also in some cases using corruption to confuse the fight against corruption, to confuse the public about the intention of government to fight corruption. If we are fighting corruption, salary reporters alone could have provided enough ammunition to put away so many public officials today. And the kind of damage they continue to do to public wealth and the health of the republic would have been curtailed. I can imagine if when we exposed Buratai, he was immediately removed and prosecuted. We wouldn't have to lose how many lives we lost in Borno State and other places because of his incompetence and continued corruption. So they just got more and more emboldened. Like I said, nobody expects that they will act upon these reports, considering that they are the ones directly affected by them.
In Senate claims, officials will willingly resign after reports of this nature are churned out, but that is not the case in Nigeria. You did mention the nature of reports that are churned out by your organization, talking about high profile corruption reports, and then lack of political will by those in government to deal decisively with those indicted. So what should we do as a nation to get our anti-corruption war back on track, especially with the appointment of Abdul Rashid Bawa as the new chairman of EFCC?
I don't see how Abdul Rashid Bawa can cover much ground, no matter how good he might be or might be portrayed as man, when he was brought into that position by the Attorney General of the Federation, one of the most corrupt individuals in this regime. I don't see how Bawa can go anywhere, because he will need to go to this guy to get.
Do you have evidence to back that up?
Yeah, I have evidence. We have written a lot of stories about him, how he built a center that was worth 3 billion naira. It's the biggest event center in every state. Houses that he built since he became Attorney General, hidden under other people's names in Abuja. And
so in your own opinion, how then should we fight corruption?
Well, it's up to the public. I think the public has enormous powers. Look, there are corruption stories that we've done in this country that would have led to revolution in some other countries if they lost that much money. Imagine the central bank audio that we obtained from the governor himself, who confirmed that there was an audio of his conversation. But what did the police do, and the DSS and all that? They arrested the whistleblowers, and some of them are still in court. Whereas the governor of the central bank, Governor Emefiele, whose voice was caught on tape, trying to, corruptly cover up this 500 billion naira fraud, remained in his position, and even got verified the second time. Confirmed the second time to the central bank governor. So how do you expect such a country to fight corruption or make progress with the fight against corruption? It's for the public to get to a point where they say no, enough is enough. And like I said, we have plenty of civil society groups out there that could have made a big deal out of this corruption reporting or reports that are themselves complicit or complacent.
Omoyele Sowore, we must thank you very much for your intervention at this time.
Thank you so much for bringing me, and I wish you guys the best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you're just joining us, you're still on to Public Conscience Production by Primark, the Progressive Impact Organization for Community Development. I'm Dr. Theophilus Ava. Could you, in 1 minute or two, profile solution, what should we do as citizens, given the fact that we have a new chair at the moment of the EFCC?
Well, as citizens, we need, maybe on our own part, to eschew corruption, perhaps, because you have a new FCC chairperson. Some persons have said because he's young.
He's a youth.
Yeah, but we've had people who are younger than him, who were governors, who have been speakers of House of Assembly, even House of Reps. I think Dimeji Bankole was younger, was in his 30s when he was Speaker of the House of Reps. So it's not the age that matters. It's actually the values. If he allows himself to be ruined by those who brought him, there is really nothing that Nigerians can do. But if he says, okay, this is an opportunity of lifetime, I'm going to do my best, I'll do it according to what is, according to the powers that EFCC has, then he will achieve a lot. Now, as Nigerians, we can only but continue to fight corruption, expose corruption. If you know about any corrupt practice taking place anywhere, expose it. You can give tips to journalists. You can use the social media to expose it, and that is the only way you can fight corruption, because corruption exposed is corruption fought.
Corruption exposed is corruption fought, and since 1999 more agencies have been established to fight corruption. Share your experiences with us in the reports not attended to by relevant agencies.
Thank you very much. I think there are two issues: the will of the government to fight corruption and the courage of the leadership of anti-corruption agencies to do their job.
Okay.
From my experience, seriously, this government is not ready to fight corruption. As a matter of fact, what this government appears to do is to condone and encourage corruption, because we see our work. Showore, Theophilus, any responsible journalist will tell you that, investigative reporter will tell you that we see our work as complementary to government anti-corruption fight. And we do reach out to anti-corruption agencies because we really want to help in fighting not just corruption, impunity. You talked about it. What we are really battling is impunity. The fact that somebody can do something and know that nothing will happen. He will get away with it.
Yes.
That is the bottom line. Now, when we do investigative reports, we expect government and its agencies to act. Rather than act, what happens is that corrupt government officials that we report about are actually using the imprimatur and the institutions of government to fight us. So we write about an agency. The agency knows somebody in government. I don't want to mention names. And that person is now using the police to harass us. So let me give you specific examples of stories we've done from MacArthur grant alone. We are doing focus reporting on the focus is procurement. So we are doing a lot of investigative reports on PHCs. The Buhari government came into government and said they will set up 10,000 primary health centers across the country. Many of them have not been built. Monies have been diverted. We have exposed a lot of this. We have done a lot of work on constituency projects. Even the ICPC
and birth registration.
Yes, which you amplified. The ICPC, actually, good for them, are now working with media houses, media organizations. The ICP itself is discovering and unearthing a lot of, even exposing senators who have been taking monies without executing projects. What happened? Who has been sued to court? Let me give you one terrible example. So, in the presidency, the very nose of the president, there is a chief, you amplified it too, there is a chief economic advisor to the president. Nobody occupies that position.
And what is going on?
And for years, monies have been not just budgeted, released for that office. We have written.
So who has been spending the money?
So the question is, who has been spending the money? Initially, we were mistaken and we thought that somebody, Dr. Dipelu, who is not the chief economic advisor to the president, but an economic advisor in the office of the vice president. We thought he was, but he said he's not. So who has been in the last 5 years? More than $500 million has been budgeted for that office.
That is it.
Monies have been released.
Who has been spending
We have
that
been
money?
writing stories. You know the irony. Right now, the National Assembly, it's a tragedy. The National Assembly has again appropriated money for a non-existing position. So it just shows us that it's either the government is not ready or is not serious about fighting corruption. Like Showore said, we have some good stories to tell, because we did the story of the former speaker of the National Assembly constituency project. We published that story, reached out to ICPC, reached out to some NGOs, and the ICPC took it up, and they forced him to.
We'll go further on this.
It's good that the ICPC took up the story of the report on constituency project, and they have tracked so many abandoned constituency projects, and some of the legislators responsible have been made to either return the equipment or the money. Joining us on phone, we have the CEO of the cable, Simon Kolawole. Thank you so much for joining us.
For having a program.
Thank you. How do you keep your team motivated in the midst of obvious neglect of investigative corruption report by government and the anti-corruption agencies?
Yeah, it's a very tough world out there. In civilized democracies, the media plays a very significant role in unveiling corruption, in getting the government to act. I can give you a million examples here. So many media reports in the UK, US, in many European countries. But in Nigeria, it seems that when you decide to investigate a story, the walls are immediately erected. It's like there is something that says, don't touch. The moment the media raises issues, which is very sad. It's very difficult to motivate your team when they are exposing all this corruption. You are supposed to be partners in progress with the government. We are trying to help the administration to fight corruption, and you are working so hard, spend so much money, time, resources that are not easily available. And then at the end of the day, nobody takes your report seriously. It's very difficult. However, we still take solace in the fact that maybe if we do 10 reports, at least one gets a response. Most often, what we call response is just the window dressing, so that it doesn't look as if we didn't do anything. In recent times, we have seen some results that really make us happy. We investigated the corruption that is going on at the airport. Those who want to travel, and they get fake COVID certificates. And immediately the military responded. They set up a panel. We've been invited to panel. We have identified military officials who are involved in the racket. So it gives us a bit of some encouragement that we'll keep doing it. Maybe out of every 10 stories, one will get a response. So that is what is keeping us motivated.
Out of every 10 stories, one gets reaction.
At least one, yeah.
Okay, that's not too encouraging.
The reaction does not mean there's going to be. It doesn't mean there's going to be remedy, but at least you acknowledge that you have done something. You understand? In some instances, yes, there are remedies. We did a story on the Chinese company that was polluting the water. That's a community in the Federal Capital Territory, and they shut down the company. They took them to court. They fined them. Things like this. They say, okay, keep going. Don't worry. Of course, several other ones that involve big groups in government, they don't touch them.
We will just continue staying positive that these stories will continue getting the needed attention. But many Nigerians are unsatisfied with the leading anti-corruption agencies. What must the EFCC do differently now that it has a new helmsman?
The EFCC, to be honest, in recent years, they got a lot of big convictions that we never got before. The former acting governor of Adamawa State, James Igilari, was sentenced to jail. He spent a night in jail. Reverend Gini Wame, Darie, Gang, Ojikalu, and some retired generals in this country. I think I'm in that general that will put on trial for corruption. But the question still remains that there are people in this government that are not deep in corruption that EFCC has not gone after them. So that is what the new EFCC board, there's no board yet, which is also part of the problem. We have an EFCC that runs without a board, that has been running for 5 years without a board. But in terms of policy direction, in terms of operations, we want to see something new. But we also want to see an EFCC that talks less, than too much media trial, and little diligence in prosecution that has gone on for so many years. Okay. Now, you are probing somebody, you are asking them questions, it's already on the basis of this over. What if the person now comes and there's no case? We are not going to see that on the basis of newspaper. A lot of people have been destroyed. I think it's making a mockery of the anti-corruption work. Do your work. I remember when the FBI was going to charge officials of FIFA, the football body, to court. They did the investigation for 10 years. Nobody knew. The day they leave it to the press was the day they were taking those officials to court. That's how you do a proper investigation. And many EFCC cases in Nigeria have been dismissed by the court because they say there is no diligent prosecution. So there must be proper investigation. It must be fair and balanced. It must not be seen to be favoring one side above the other. Who cannot be accused of doing the same thing, then one is going scot-free.
We are actually pressed for time. We are actually pressed for time, but many thanks for squeezing out time to join us this time.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your contribution. You just heard the voice of Simon Kolawole, who is the CEO of the cable. But before we get back to our guest in the studio, Dayo Ayeton, let's quickly open the phone lines.
Yeah, please follow us on our social media platforms at Official Primorg. Primorg is once again spelled Primorg. Remember that we are streaming live on Facebook at Official Primorg.
And remember that this program is interactive. The WhatsApp number to send your message is 0902 265 6167. That is 0902 265 6167. What is your reaction to what you have heard as a Nigerian? Are you aware of the numerous investigative corruption reports churned out on a daily basis? And how bothered are you that these reports are not acted on by government and the anti-corruption agencies? And Dayo, you said that the work of the investigative journalists is complementary to the objective of the government and the anti-corruption agencies. And we also heard Simon Kolawole say that it is encouraging when government and the anti-graft agencies act speedily on the investigative reports churned out by journalists. Mm-hmm. How he said out of 10, most times you get the government to react to one of the reports, one out of 10 reports.
Not that we get, we pray.
Pray, not.
You know what Simon said. Any of us will say the same thing. You know what I say is, in my how many years, over a decade, 2 decades, as an investigative reporter, I say that many of the people that we exposed, and I can understand Showore started this before any of us with Sahara reporters. Many people we wrote about, we exposed stealing from public coffers. Many of them are in the National Assembly. I say it boldly. Many people who have even taken us to court for this. We did stories, we had evidence and so on. If James Ibori had been he was in Nigeria, nothing happened, they were trying him, the trial would have continued forever. But today, because he was outside Nigeria, he was arrested and he was charged to court. So the law must be allowed to take its course. The media, I continue to insist, is a friend of government. We play a complementary role to government. And we expect that the stories we do will form the basis of their investigation. And they should be happy with the job we are doing. So The government and its agencies, we want to see more working with journalists. I also think that journalists, the media, also need to make an effort, because when we've made the effort in the past with EFCC, with ICPC, we have actually achieved results.
All right, going forward, we must advance this fight against corruption.
This issue we are talking about, it concerns each and every one of us, because
There are common
if the monies are stolen for personal use, and you as a citizen, the highway that is supposed to be tarred with this money is not tarred, the hospitals are not functional, it affects you one way or the other. So the issue concerns all of us. We want you to call in and probably profile solution.
Well, like I was saying, we must advance this fight. We cannot just stay like that. In local balance, they will say, "Now like this we go the day." So we must go on, especially now that we have a new EFCC chairman. That we must set agendas for him. So what will you be telling the EFCC chairman to do differently?
So
sorry, I have to cut it there. Let's take this call. Hello.
Hello, my name is Ajonya. I am calling from Masokoro, Abuja here.
Let's hear you, please.
Yeah, I've been listening to the program Corruption. Yeah, let me tell you the fact about the genesis of all this happening now, that government are not that ready to fight this corruption. For instance, if appointment, a name is being nominated for confirmation in the National Assembly, what extent did the National Assembly members do to that confirmation in investigating the personality of that person that was nominated to be appointed in a particular position in the office? The National Assembly did not do their work, so they did not investigate how authentic, how good is that person if being given that opportunity to handle that office. It is supposed to be part of their work to know who is handling the office that should manage money in the office.
So you want the National Assembly to dig deeper?
Do you think that they are subject to be able to say something about it? So many corruption cases that were given out, the National Assembly have turned deaf ears to them. Who is going to do this? Why they have the police, they have the EFCC, they have the court, everything they have. It's in their hand. They gave order to the police, and the police do what they wanted them to do. They give order to the court, and they
Thank you so much for your contribution. We want to give others opportunity to call in. Thank you. The National Assembly should dig deeper before appointing or during screening or approving a personality.
Can I write on the back of that? So I did say that there are two aspects of this. In fact, several other aspects. If you look at ordinary Nigerians, I said the will of the government to fight corruption. The other one is the courage of the leadership of the anti-corruption agencies.
The courage of the leadership of the anti-corruption agencies.
Do they have the courage? Let me give you one example. My team and I went to interview a former chairman of the ICPC, and they said, not this one, former, and they said the chief of staff to the Senate president was calling him, he should come, and we kept telling the chairman, the Senate president. So when we finished, he said he's not going. That the chairman of the ICPC, the Senate president would, but that was probably what was happening. On the other hand, we went to see another anti-corruption agency's boss once years ago. Lo and behold, the vice president then called him, and this guy, he abandoned everything. So I'm saying that
political interference
must be resisted. The last caller who spoke said something. I hope Bauer, the young man who is now at the headship of the EFCC, has not already compromised himself. Because part of the problem is, in getting into office, some of these people become political because they are going behind the scenes to lobby for their confirmation and all that, that ties their hands. If he has not done that, this young man can liberate himself from political interference by showing courage. If he knows that the government, the president has his back, he does not. We have seen the leadership of anti-corruption agencies performing independently.
But the president having his back, is that not also political interference?
No, what I mean is he can move and do what he wants to do without interference by the attorney general, by a minister and all that, because he knows that whatever he does, he's reporting only to the president.
Reporting only to the president. Let's take this call. Hello. Yes, good morning. Your name and where you're calling from?
Yeah, my name is Frank.
Frank, let's hear you.
I'm calling from Guzati.
Let's hear you, Frank.
Yeah, please, the gentleman speaker, I just on my tune on my radio now. So I just listen to the conversation about corruption. Hello?
We can hear you. What is? Go ahead.
Yeah. So I don't know what the headline of this is. So my opinion of the corruption is that there is no political whatsoever on the corruption investigation.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So I want to ask a question. If this one is from the EFCC who is one of the investigators, because I see an issue of corruption that they have investigated and they have found a lot of huge amount of money from the people, and now the people are still living in this. They're still living. A lot of their properties are returned back to them. Are you getting me? A lot of property are returned back to them. Let me just mention more people. Like the DSA, the DSA to the former National Security Advisor. That is the former DSA. That is the I'll call him. Who was not allegedly, he was confirmed and proscribed on corruption. Find 12 billion naira on his account. Find 2 billion on his total account. And this was still moving freely. And the defending himself, all the money they find for him, where is the money is? And him himself.
You have 30 seconds to round up.
Wait, they have the collected for him at Afokoro in the John Street. I heard that they returned the house back to him. Why is this so? That the house was rented before.
Okay.
Which is not true.
Thank you so much for your
submission. The much we can
submission.
accommodate from him.
Round up.
Well, one of the significant encumbrances, hindrances to fighting corruption and impunity in Nigeria is what he just mentioned. There is no asset forfeiture law in Nigeria. And so that's the way kleptocracy works. Government officials who are stealing public funds, they use the imprimatur of instrument of the state, of state institutions, to prevent themselves from being brought to justice. Let the National Assembly come up with an asset forfeiture law. That will be a huge disincentive to stealing public funds.
Asset forfeiture law. And that is how we are wrapping it up on today's episode of Public Conscience.
It's been a robust discussion here, but we'll continue this talk and this fight against corruption. Please visit the news page of our website, news.primorg.org. That is news.primorg.org. For all the details of our report and interviews, visit our website, primorg.org, to get all the information about Primorg.
And you can watch our videos and interviews on Primorg TV, our YouTube channel. Please subscribe to get a reminder when we have a new post. We sincerely appreciate our guest, the Program Director at Daily Trust Foundation, Theophilus Abba, the Executive Director at International Center for Investigative Reporting, Dayo Ayeton. Thank you so much for being a part of today's program. And our sincere gratitude also goes to the CEO, publisher of The Cables, who joined us via phone, Simon Kolawole, and the CEO, publisher of Sahara Reporters, Omoyele Showore, who also joined us via the phone. For you who called in, we sincerely appreciate you. Those watching us on Facebook, we sincerely appreciate you also. Public Conscience is supported by the John T. and Catherine V. MacArthur Foundation, committed to building a more just, verdant, and peaceful world. Get more information about the foundation on its website, macfound.org.
Join us again here next week for another episode of Public Conscience. And remember to follow us on our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Official Primal. I am Chidozie Ogunne.
Remember that you can give us information or hints about corruption acts through our phone 0902-265-6167 or info@primark.org. The work of the investigative journalist is complementary to the objective of the government and the anti-graft agencies. I am Adawi.
The prevalence of